Hi, everyone. Imagine walking into a room full of people, but feeling completely invisible. Imagine facing victories with no one to celebrate them and struggles with no one to lean on. I was that man, a man with no friends. And while the silence was loud and the loneliness sharp, what I found in that solitude changed me forever. Today, I'm not here to ask for your sympathy. I'm here to share how being friendless taught me the most important lessons about strength, identity, and the power we hold within ourselves. This isn't a story of despair. This is a story of resilience. Because sometimes being alone is the beginning of truly knowing who you are. Loneliness can be a path to self-discovery and inner strength. It may seem counterintuitive, even paradoxical, to associate solitude with empowerment. Society often paints loneliness in shades of sadness, and portraying it as something to be fixed, avoided, or medicated. Yet in the quiet moments, when the noise of the world fades and the crowd disperses, we are left with the one person who remains constant in our lives, ourselves. And it is in that stillness, in that raw and often uncomfortable silence, that we begin to hear our true voice. For many, the initial experience of loneliness is jarring. It can feel like a void, a reminder of absence. No text messages, no phone calls, no invitations. The world appears to be moving on without us, and in that isolation, we question our worth. But beneath the discomfort lies an opportunity when we are forced to sit with our own thoughts, to confront our fears, insecurities, and longings without distraction. We begin to unearth parts of ourselves that we may have ignored, hidden, or suppressed in the presence of others. Loneliness strips away pretense. When there's no one to impress, no expectations to meet, no roles to play, we begin to engage with ourselves in an authentic way. We ask deeper questions. Who am I when no one is watching? What do I truly value? What brings me peace, not popularity? These aren't easy questions, and their answers rarely come quickly. But the journey to discovering them is where strength is forged. Self-discovery born from solitude is not about isolation for its own sake. It's about learning to be comfortable in our own skin. Is realizing that our worth isn't determined by the number of people who surround us, but by the clarity with which we understand and accept ourselves. We begin to recognize our patterns, how we react to failure, how we process rejection, what we crave in others that we haven't yet found within. This awareness is the seed of personal growth. In loneliness, we develop the skill of self-reflection. We examine our past with a more honest lens. We replay conversations, decisions, regrets, and from this introspection emerges insight. We learn not only what we've done, but why we did it. We uncover the root of our behaviors, our defenses, our coping mechanisms. We begin to see how often we've used relationships as distractions from our unfulfilled pain or our unfulfilled potential. Loneliness makes these truths harder to ignore. But what makes loneliness truly transformative is how it teaches us to rely on ourselves. When we have no one else to motivate us, comfort us, or push us forward, we either remain stuck or we rise. And in rising, we find power. We become our own source of encouragement, our own guide, our own support system. We begin to trust our instincts more because we've had time to listen to them without interference. This self-trust becomes a cornerstone of inner strength. When you spend time alone, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally, you begin to understand what nourishes your soul. You discover what kind of music stirs something inside you, what kind of books speak to your experience, what kind of environments bring out your creativity or calm. You realize how often you've settled for less for the sake of companionship rather than risking solitude for authenticity. And with this realization comes the resolve to live more truthfully. Loneliness also tests our resilience. There will be days when the silence feels suffocating, when doubt creeps in, when memories of rejection or abandonment replay in our minds. It's in these moments that we are challenged to find strength we didn't know we had. We learn to sit with discomfort, not to escape it. We learn to process our emotions instead of numbing them. We learn to face our inner critic and speak back with compassion. These are not small victories. They are the building blocks of unshakable confidence. As we continue on this journey, something remarkable begins to happen. We stop seeking validation from the outside and begin to validate ourselves. We stop chasing after relationships that don't honor us because we've learned to honor ourselves. We become more selective, not out of arrogance, but out of understanding. We realize that our time and energy are precious, and we no longer give them away freely in exchange for the illusion of belonging. This shift marks a turning point from loneliness as a wound to solitude as a sanctuary. The strength gained in solitude is quiet, not boastful. It's the kind of strength that allows you to walk into a room alone and not feel lesser for it. It's the strength that lets you say no when it would be easier to say yes just to please others. It's the strength that lets you wait for the right people, the right opportunities, the right timing, because you've learned not to settle just to fill the silence. This inner fortitude becomes your anchor. When we emerge from the depths of loneliness, we often do so with a new sense of identity. We're no longer shaped solely by the opinions of others, but by our own experience of ourselves. We begin to write our own story rather than living in someone else's narrative. We start setting boundaries, not because we've grown bitter, but because we've grown wise. We prioritize peace over approval. We measure success not by attention, but by alignment. Another powerful byproduct of solitude is empathy. Having known what it feels like to be unseen or unheard, we become more attuned to the quiet struggles of others. We listen more deeply. We offer presence instead of platitudes. We stop assuming that everyone who appears fine actually is. Our pain becomes a bridge, connecting us to others with more authenticity. And though we may have started this journey alone, we often end up forming deeper, more meaningful connections because of who we've become. Loneliness teaches us that we are enough, not when we're liked, not when we're needed, not when we're busy, but as we are. It's a truth that's easy to forget in a world full of noise and comparison, but one that becomes unshakable when discovered in silence. Once we've experienced this truth, we're no longer as afraid of being alone. We know that while the presence of others can enrich our lives, their absence does not diminish it. Even creativity often flourishes in solitude. Many artists, writers, thinkers, and inventors have produced their most impactful work in seasons of isolation. This isn't coincidence, it's because solitude offers the mental space to think deeply, to experiment without judgment, to fail without an audience. In loneliness, we stop performing and start exploring. We start editing ourselves for others and start expressing ourselves for truth. This creative freedom can be deeply healing and energizing. There's also a spiritual dimension to solitude. In many traditions, time alone is seen not as a punishment, but as a path to enlightenment. Whether through meditation, prayer, or quiet reflection, solitude invites us to connect with something greater than ourselves. We begin to sense a deeper purpose, a greater meaning. Even if we don't subscribe to a particular faith, the stillness can open us to wonder, to gratitude, to a sense of belonging to the universe itself. As the noise of modern life increases, with its constant connectivity, endless scrolling, and pressure to always be seen, loneliness, paradoxically, becomes a rare gift. It offers us the chance to reset, to unplug, to return to ourselves. It's not an easy path, and it certainly isn't glamorous, but for those willing to walk it, it leads to a foundation of strength that doesn't rely on external circumstances. Not everyone who experiences loneliness will find growth in it. Some will avoid it, deny it, or drown it in distractions. But those who choose to face it head on, who choose to sit in the discomfort and ask the hard questions, will find a version of themselves they didn't know existed. They will emerge more grounded, more self-aware, more compassionate. Loneliness isn't the enemy, it's the teacher. And like all great teachers, it doesn't coddle. It challenges, it confronts. But in doing so, it awakens us to our capacity for growth. It shows us what we're made of. It reveals the resilience hiding beneath the surface. And once we've met ourselves in that sacred space, we carry a strength that no one can take away. The connection starts with building a strong relationship with yourself. This may sound like a simple statement, but it carries immense depth. In a world that constantly encourages external validation through social media likes, romantic relationships, professional accolades, it's easy to believe that connection is something that must come from outside of us. We're taught to seek closeness with others, to find our other half, to be accepted by our peers. But the foundation of every meaningful connection we form with others begins with the one we build internally. Without a secure and honest relationship with ourselves, our connections often become unstable, dependent, or inauthentic. Building a relationship with yourself isn't just about self-care routines or moments of solitude. It's about truly knowing who you are when no one is watching. It means being honest about your fears, recognizing your patterns, embracing your strengths, and acknowledging your flaws without shame. This relationship forms the core of your identity. It influences how you communicate, how you love, how you trust, and how you set boundaries. The way you treat yourself teaches others how to treat you. If you speak to yourself with kindness, others will mirror that. If you constantly doubt yourself or dismiss your own needs, you're more likely to tolerate that behavior in your relationships. So when you have a strong relationship with yourself, you no longer seek connection from a place of lack. You approach others from a place of fullness. Instead of needing someone to complete you, you look for someone who complements you. This shift is crucial. It changes the dynamic from one of dependency to one of mutual respect and shared growth. You're not looking to be saved, you're looking to share your already complete self with another person. That's where real intimacy begins. To develop that internal connection, you must first create space for self-awareness. This means becoming curious about your thoughts and behaviors without immediately judging them. Why do you react the way you do in certain situations? What triggers your anxiety or defensiveness? Where do your deepest desires and fears originate? These are difficult questions, and answering them often requires facing uncomfortable truths. But it's through this process that you begin to understand the layers of who you are. This understanding is the soil in which self-respect and inner peace grow. Being connected to yourself also means being emotionally honest. Many people are disconnected from their own feelings. They suppress sadness, avoid vulnerability, or mask pain with distractions. But when you learn to sit with your emotions, to feel them fully without resistance, you begin to trust yourself more deeply. You prove to yourself that you are capable of handling your own experience. This self-trust is what allows you to show up authentically in relationships. You're no longer afraid of being seen because you've already seen yourself. A strong internal relationship also helps you develop a clear sense of values. When you know what you stand for, you're less likely to compromise your principles to fit in or be liked. This clarity acts as a compass, guiding your decisions and helping you choose relationships that align with your true self. Without this inner guidance, you may find yourself in connections that feel hollow, confusing, or draining because they are based on a version of you that isn't real. Another critical aspect of self-relationship is self-compassion. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone has moments of weakness, regret, or failure. But how you respond to yourself in those moments defines the strength of your inner bond. Do you berate yourself or do you offer understanding? Do you abandon yourself emotionally or do you stay present and supportive? The way you treat yourself in times of struggle sets the tone for how others will treat you. Self-compassion isn't about letting yourself off the hook. It's about acknowledging your humanity and choosing growth over punishment. Boundaries are also born from self-respect. When you know yourself well, you recognize what drains you and what nourishes you. You learn when to say no, not out of fear or avoidance, but from a place of clarity and care. Healthy boundaries are not walls. They are invitations to connect in a way that honors both parties. You cannot establish these boundaries without first having a strong understanding of your own limits and needs. People who lack a deep connection with themselves often struggle with boundaries, leading to resentment, burnout, or feelings of being taken for granted. Spending time alone is not the same as being lonely. In fact, solitude is a powerful tool for cultivating self-relationship. When you choose to be alone, not as an escape, but as an active presence, you allow yourself to recharge and reconnect. You begin to enjoy your own company, to value your own thoughts and insights. This self-enjoyment reduces the fear of being alone and increases your ability to choose relationships based on alignment rather than desperation. There's also an element of creativity and play that emerges from self-connection. When you're not constantly seeking approval or trying to fit into someone else's mold, you become more free to explore your interests, try new things, and express yourself openly. You laugh more freely, you take more risks, and you pursue what lights you up, not what earns you praise. This kind of joy is magnetic. It draws people to you who are aligned with your authentic self, not just your social mask. Mental and emotional resilience is another benefit of a strong self-relationship. Life inevitably brings challenges: loss, failure, heartbreak, change. When you're deeply connected to yourself, you have a stable foundation that helps you weather these storms. You're not shattered by external events because your sense of worth isn't tied to them. You've built an inner sanctuary that remains steady even when the world around you is in chaos. From this place, you can face difficulty with courage and dignity. It's also important to recognize that the relationship you have with yourself evolves. Just as people change over time, so do your needs, beliefs, and priorities. Staying connected to yourself means checking in regularly, asking what feels true now, what needs to be released, What desires are emerging? This ongoing dialogue ensures that you don't get stuck in outdated versions of yourself. It allows you to grow intentionally rather than reactively. It keeps your inner life alive and dynamic. One of the most misunderstood aspects of self-connection is that it's selfish or narcissistic, but in reality, the opposite is true. When you're grounded in yourself, you're actually more capable of giving to others. Your generosity comes from overflow, not obligation. Your love is rooted in presence, not performance. You're able to listen more deeply, to support more effectively, and to connect more meaningfully because you're not distracted by your own unmet needs. You've already tended to them. Authenticity is the natural result of a strong self-relationship. You don't need to play roles or wear masks to be accepted because you've already accepted yourself. This authenticity is what fosters trust. People feel safe around those who are congruent, who say what they mean and mean what they say. When you are aligned internally, your words and actions match. You don't have to remember which version of yourself you showed to which person. You just show up as you are. This internal alignment also affects your professional life. Whether you're leading a team, collaborating with colleagues, or navigating conflict, your self-awareness and emotional intelligence will shape the quality of your interactions. When you know your strengths, you can lead with confidence. When you know your blind spots, you can seek support or make adjustments. When you're in touch with your values, you can make decisions with integrity, even when they're difficult. The relationship you have with yourself also influences how you handle love and intimacy. Many romantic relationships suffer, not from incompatibility, but from a lack of self-awareness and emotional maturity. When you haven't done the inner work, you bring unresolved wounds, unrealistic expectations, and unconscious patterns into your relationships. But when you've cultivated self-connection, you approach love with openness and responsibility. You don't expect your partner to heal you, complete you, or save you. Instead, you offer partnership from a place of wholeness, and you receive it with gratitude rather than need. In friendships, too, self-connection is key. It helps you recognize who truly supports your growth and who drains your energy. It gives you the courage to walk away from relationships that no longer serve you and the wisdom to nurture those that do. You're able to be a better friend, not because you're perfect, but because you're present. You're not caught up in performance or insecurity. You're simply showing up as yourself, and that authenticity deepens the bond. Perhaps one of the most empowering aspects of building a relationship with yourself is that it puts you back in the driver's seat of your life. You're no longer passively drifting based on what others want or expect. You're choosing your direction based on what resonates with your soul. You become the author of your story rather than just a character in someone else's narrative. You make choices based on alignment, not anxiety. This journey is not linear. There will be setbacks, moments of doubt, periods of disconnection. But each time you return to yourself, to your breath, your truth, your inner compass, you reinforce the foundation. Over time, this foundation becomes unshakable. It holds you through change. It anchors you in uncertainty. It reminds you that you are your own home. True connection, the kind that lasts and nourishes, does not begin with finding the right people. It begins with becoming the right person for yourself. When you commit to knowing, accepting, and honoring yourself fully, you open the door to relationships that reflect that same depth and integrity.